The night my mother-in-law set 7 places at the table, there were 8 of us in the house. She looked at my 7-year-old stepdaughter like she was the easiest thing in the room to move, picked up June's plate, carried it to the laundry room, and set it on top of the dryer like she was putting away a dish she did not want to deal with. By the end of that night, Janet would be the one standing out on the porch in the cold, but that was not what made the whole room go dead silent. What shut everybody up were the 2 pieces of paper I laid on the table first. "This table is for blood," Janet said to me with a smile like she had just said something sensible. She had no idea I had been keeping the books. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where we sit with the quiet moments families try to bury, then follow them all the way to the truth. I'm Megan. I'm 34. I keep other people's books for a living, and I'd been keeping the peace in this family for 3 years. Not anymore. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. We live in Millbrook, in a narrow blue house with a kitchen that never really warms up. June's drawings cover the refrigerator edge to edge, even taped over the handle so you have to peel one back just to grab the milk. Greg is a calm man with sawdust permanently caught in the cuffs of his shirts. He runs the floor at a cabinet shop 2 towns over. I married him 3 years ago, when June was 4 and still called every man at the hardware store, "Sir." His 2 older kids, Tyler and Hannah, stay with us on weekends and half the summer. 12 and 10, all elbows and opinions. I love that house when it's full. I love it even more when nobody's keeping score. And that was the thing. Nobody had been bothered to add up the score. I was the one keeping the whole thing running. I scheduled the dentist appointments and the oil changes. I remembered which cousin was gluten-free and which one wasn't speaking to whom. When Greg's parents needed something, the request came to him and the money came from me, quietly, the way I do most things. I'm not saying that to sound noble. I'm a bookkeeper. Tracking what goes out and what comes back is just how my brain settles down. Every family has one person who keeps the lights on. Around here, that person was me. And not one of them had done the math on what that meant. I used to think that was fine. I used to think love was supposed to be invisible, that the best kind of giving left no fingerprints. That was my mistake. And it took a 7-year-old standing in a doorway to show me. You do not keep the peace by paying for it. You just teach people the peace is free. Every Sunday, we drove the 25 minutes out to Cedar Hollow, where Greg grew up. Janet keeps a clean house and a cold ledger. From the very first dinner I ever sat through there, she had a way of saying June's name that made it sound like she was placing it at arm's length. "And how's Megan's girl?" she would ask. Never our June. Never the baby. Tyler and Hannah got the good chair and the second helping. They got told they had the Walsh nose, the Walsh stubbornness, the Walsh everything. June got told to be careful on the stairs. The Christmas before this all blew up, I watched Janet hand out gifts. Tyler and Hannah each had a stack. June got one small box, the kind you'd give a neighbor or a teacher's aide. I said something. Janet smiled and told me, "Children shouldn't be spoiled." Roy, my father-in-law, just studied his coffee. There's a refrigerator in that house too, and it is bare metal. Tyler's school photo lives on it. Hannah's ribbon from the science fair. Not one single one of June's drawings, though. She brought a fresh one every visit and pressed it into Janet's hands at the door. I found them later in the recycling, smoothed flat, like Janet couldn't quite bring herself to throw them away, but couldn't quite keep them either. Greg told me his mother came from people who measured worth in acres and last names. 5 generations on the same land before the bank took it. To Janet, blood was not sentiment. It was the only deed that could never be foreclosed. I understood her. That was the problem. I understood her too well to hate her. So I let it slide, year after year, telling myself a child cannot feel a temperature she has never been taught to name. June felt it. She just didn't have the word for it yet. She kept asking me a question I could not answer. And then Roy's heart could not wait anymore. 2 years ago, his cardiologist put him on a fistful of pills, and the copays alone ran close to $500 a month. Then the roof in Cedar Hollow gave out over the winter. $6,000 to replace it, more than they had. Roy's pension covers the basics and not much else. So the help started the way most help starts. With one transfer, I told myself was temporary. I covered the medication, then the groceries when the medication ate the grocery money, then the roof in installments so it wouldn't show up as one frightening number. Greg knew. Janet assumed it came from him, from his shop wages, from his good son Hart. I never corrected her. Correcting her would have meant a conversation, and conversations in that family came with a bill of their own. So I set up the payments and logged each one because logging things is what I do when my chest gets tight. I never kept those records to use them against anybody. I want to be clear about that. I kept them the way I keep all my ledgers, because numbers are the one thing in that family that never lie and never change their story, depending on who is in the room. A column of figures does not care whose nose you have. It just adds up. Month after month, it added up. The total grew into a quiet, heavy thing I carried around without quite looking at. I could have told you the figure to the dollar any time you asked. I just never said it out loud. There is a kind of giving that curdles if you keep it secret too long. It stops being generosity and starts being evidence. I did not know that yet. I was about to learn it at a birthday party. Do not mistake my silence for softness. I had drawn the line before, more than once, and watched it wash away. The first time, I sat Janet down at her own table and told her plainly that June was my daughter and her grandchild, and that the cold shoulder stopped now. Janet folded her hands and said she treated all children the same. Then she asked if I had brought the receipts for Roy's prescription. The second time, I told Greg I was done funding a house where my kid ate last. I meant it. I had the bank app open, my thumb over the recurring transfer, ready to end it. That was the week Roy landed in the ER with chest pains. You cannot shut off a man's heart medication just to win an argument with his wife. So I closed the app. Greg asked me quietly to give his mother more time. He always asked for more time. He is a peacemaker, my husband. And peacemakers are wonderful, right up until the day the peace they are keeping is built on your daughter's back. I gave him the time. I told myself Janet was old, that the prejudice would die with her generation, that I could outlast it with patience and a steady hand. I was wrong about the timeline. Hate does not get tired. It just waits for an audience. But I kept one sentence for myself through all of it. I would say it in the car on the way home while June slept in her booster seat. Love isn't blood, it's who shows up. I kept whispering it like a prayer I was not fully ready to believe. I showed up. I had been showing up for 3 years in dollars and casseroles and silence. And the showing up was about to stop being silent. There was something Janet did not know, something Greg and I had been building for the better part of a year. The spring before, Greg came home from work, sat on the edge of June's bed while she slept, and watched her for a long time. Then he found me in the kitchen and said he wanted to make it real. Not stepdad. Father on paper, in court. The kind that cannot be argued at a dinner table. We hired a family attorney in the county seat. Because we'd been married over a year and June had lived under our roof since she was 4, the process moved without a contested hearing. Her biological father had signed away his rights long before I met Greg. There was nobody to fight us. 6 weeks before the birthday, we drove to the courthouse in our good clothes. A judge with reading glasses asked Greg if he understood that adoption made June his child in every legal sense, his heir, his responsibility forever. No different from Tyler and Hannah. Greg said yes before the judge even finished the sentence. June got to bang the little gavel. The clerk laughed. We have a photo of June mid-swing, mouth wide open, Greg's hand steadying her wrist. Her name is June Walsh now, not Megan's girl. Walsh. Like the nose, like the stubbornness, like everything. We had not told the family. We were saving it. The way you save the best news for the moment it lands hardest and kindest. Greg's birthday felt right. We pictured Janet's face softening. Finally, the paper doing what 3 years of casseroles never could. I kept the decree in a manila envelope, flat and official, and I brought it to the party folded in my bag. I told myself it was for the announcement. Some part of me knew better. Janet announced that she would host the party herself, which was new. Usually I hosted and she critiqued. This year, she wanted it in Cedar Hollow. Her table, her rules, and Greg's sister Brenda would handle the details. Brenda is 40, recently divorced, and orbits her mother like a moon that forgot it used to have its own light. She moved back to the Hollow after the split and made herself the keeper of the family's small treasures. The photo albums, the holiday china, the question of who sits where. I offered to cook the way I always did. I offered to bring the cake and cover the catering tray. Brenda said, in that bright voice that is really just a closed door, that they wanted to keep it family this year. Let family handle the family things. I let it go. I always let it go. But I ordered the cake anyway, because June had asked for the kind with white frosting and strawberries. And I wrote the names for the baker to pipe on top. Greg, Megan, June, Tyler, Hannah, Janet, Roy, and Greg's sister, Brenda. 8 names across the top of that cake. 8. I remember thinking it was a good number. A full number. The kind of number a family should have when it has grown instead of shrunk. On the phone, Brenda asked if we would need a kids' table, then answered herself before I could say anything. Probably not, she said. Probably the children can sort themselves out. I should have heard it then. The trap was already set. The chairs were already counted in a house I did not control. I was bringing a cake with 8 names to a table laid for 7. We drove out on a gray Saturday. The cake box was buckled into the middle seat like a third child. June wore the green dress she had picked out herself and held a rolled-up drawing in her lap the whole way. A surprise for Greg, she said. No peeking. Tyler and Hannah rode with us too, fresh from their mother's houses, arguing over some video game in the easy way of kids who feel safe. Greg hummed along to the radio. I watched the fields pass by and felt, for once, almost hopeful. Today, we'd tell them. Today, the paper would speak. Janet met us at the door with a hug for Greg, a nod for Tyler and Hannah, and there she is for June that did not quite reach her eyes. The house smelled like pot roast and lemon polish. The dining room had been set with the good china, cloth napkins, and the heavy silver that only came out for blood occasions. I set the cake on the sideboard and did the thing I always do in a new room. I counted 7 chairs, 7 plates, 7 napkins folded into little tents. I counted again because I'm a bookkeeper, and the first count is never the one I trust. 7. Brenda came through carrying a picture frame and caught me looking. We're a little tight on space this year, she said, not meeting my eye, while she arranged the water glasses just so. Tyler had already flopped into a chair. Hannah claimed the one by the window. That left, by my arithmetic, exactly enough seats for everyone at that table except one. June stood in the doorway with her rolled-up drawing, looking at the grown-ups, looking at the chairs, doing the same small math I was doing, and landing on the same cold answer. She did not say anything. She just moved a little closer to my side. Before dinner, the neighbors came by. The Hadleys from down the road were dropping off a card for Greg. Janet lit up. She put one hand on Tyler's shoulder and the other on Hannah's and presented them like exhibits. These are the grandchildren, she said. Tyler's going to play ball in high school. Can you believe the size of him? The Hadleys made the right noises. June stood 18 inches away, holding her drawing and smiling up, waiting to be introduced. She was not. Janet's hand never moved off Tyler's shoulder. The Hadleys said their goodbyes and left without learning June's name because in that room, June did not have one worth saying. June tugged my sleeve and asked me the question she had been circling for a year, and finally said out loud, quiet enough that only I could hear it. Mommy, am I a grandkid too? I knelt down right there on Janet's polished floor and told her yes. I told her she was somebody's whole world and a lot of people's grandkid, and that the people who could not see that were the ones missing out. She nodded the way kids do when they want to believe you, but can't quite. Behind me, I heard Janet and Brenda in the kitchen, not bothering to lower their voices much. Brenda murmured something about the seating, about keeping it simple, and Janet said the thing she would say twice more before the night was through, the sentence that became the spine of everything that happened after. "This table is for blood." June heard it. I watched it land on her. I watched her file it away next to the bare refrigerator and the recycled drawings and the one small Christmas box. She did not cry. She just got very still, the way I get very still. And for the first time, I understood exactly whose daughter she was. Greg missed all of it. That is the cruel part of these things. They happen in the corners, in the kitchen, in the half second when the good man is in the other room admiring a card. He was out on the porch with Roy and a neighbor, talking gutters and ball games, the birthday boy being celebrated in the way he liked best, which was quietly. He did not see Janet's hand stay planted on Tyler's shoulder. He did not hear the sentence. If I had walked out and told him, he would have come in hot, and then there would have been a scene, and June would have learned that her belonging was something the adults had to fight about in front of company. I did not want her carrying that. So I made a calculation, the kind I make all day with other people's money. I weighed the cost of waiting against the cost of erupting. And I chose to watch a little longer. I kept June close. I kept my bag closer. Inside it, flat against the lining, was the manila envelope. And beside it was a second folder I had printed the night before and told myself I was not really bringing. 3 years of transfers, dated, totaled, sorted by category. Medication, roof, groceries. I had printed it at midnight while Greg slept, telling myself it was for my own records, for tax season, for any reason, but really for the one reason I had not wanted to name. You do not bring your books to a birthday party unless some part of you already knows the party is going to turn into an audit. I stood in Janet's dining room with my daughter's hand in mine and a ledger in my bag, and I waited to see how far she would go. I did not have to wait long. Dinner was ready. Janet called everyone to the table, and the table I knew had 7 chairs. While Janet carried the roast in, Brenda did the quiet work that makes cruelty look like logistics. She drifted over and suggested, all reasonableness, that June might be more comfortable in the den. There was a TV in there, she said, and a folding tray. And wouldn't a little girl rather watch cartoons than sit through grown-up talk? She framed it as kindness. She always does. I said June was comfortable right here with her family. Brenda's smile tightened. She lowered her voice and got to the actual point, which was never about comfort. "The photos," she said. After dinner, they were doing the family photos for the wall in the hallway, and Mom wanted those to be just the grandchildren. "The real grandchildren," she said, then caught herself and did not take it back. That was the moment I understood this was not Janet improvising. This was planned. The chair count, the den, the photos, the careful exclusion dressed up as practicality. All of it had been decided before we ever walked in. Brenda glanced toward the kitchen, toward her mother, the way she had probably glanced at Janet all her life, checking she had done the assignment right. Here's what I had figured out about Brenda over 3 years. She was not cruel because she hated June. She was frightened. The divorce had left her with nothing of her own, and her mother's approval, her mother's house, her mother's eventual estate was the one inheritance she still felt entitled to. Every place set for my daughter felt to Brenda like a slice taken off her own chair, so she counted chairs and policed photos and called it tradition. Janet appeared in the doorway with the roast and the carving knife. She looked at June standing by my side exactly where June belonged, and I watched her decide that would not do. "June, honey," she said. "Come here a minute." Roy saw it coming before the others did. He had come in from the porch and lowered himself into his chair at the head of the table, moving the careful way he moves since the heart trouble. He watched Janet set down the roast and call June over, and something crossed his face, something tired, something ashamed. "Janet," he said, "she's just a little girl. Let her sit." It was the most he had said on the subject in 3 years. For 1 second, I thought he might be the one to break it. Janet did not even look at him. Stay out of it, Roy. I'm handling the table. And he did. He stayed out of it.